Star Wars: The Old Republic. Is it worth playing in 2025? How's it going, everybody? Mr. Hulthen here, and today we're taking a look at the long-running Star Wars MMO by Bioware. Now we're going to take a look at the good stuff, some bad stuff, and maybe some other useful information before you decide to hop on that monthly subscription. But before we do, I'd appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Many thanks! Now, Star Wars: The Old Republic is an older MMO, and you can feel that the moment you start swinging a lightsaber. The combat is tab targeting, ability based, and leans heavily on cooldown management. If you've played something like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, or Lord of the Rings Online, you'll be right at home. That said, there is a distinct Bioware flavor to how it plays. Each class has its own rhythm and identity. For example, Sith warriors feel aggressive, tanky, and heavy-hitting, while sorcerers are more about ranged force abilities and crowd control and showing off your unlimited power. Now, the animations aren't exactly modern. Some of them are pretty janky, but the sound design and class fantasy go a long way in selling the impact of your abilities. Responsiveness is decent. There is some input delay here and there, especially in more crowded areas or on slower servers, but nothing game-breaking. Now, where Star Wars: The Old Republic really holds its ground is in the feel of combat. It is pretty flashy. Abilities come with punchy audio, colorful effects, and a very Star Wars-style cadence. You're not getting modern action combat like in Black Desert or New World, but the game makes up for it with class identity and a steady power curve. At the end of the day, it's smooth enough to be enjoyable, and the power fantasy of choking out enemies as a Sith or force leaping into a crowd as a Jedi Knight still holds up, especially with modern frame rates on PC. Now, SWTOR launched in 2011, and while that shows in some places, it's aged more gracefully than you might expect. The art direction leans stylized rather than photorealistic, which has helped it avoid looking completely outdated. Character models are a bit stiff and animations can be a bit clunky, but the environments still hold up surprisingly well, especially in the more cinematic story moments.
You fool! There's your pet, Harkin. Clean this mess up. Apprentice, meet me in my chambers upstairs.
Cinematic cutscenes are everywhere, and while they've got that trademark Bioware jank, they do a solid job of carrying the story. Think stuff like slow head turns, stiff gestures, and floaty camera work, but it's kind of charming in its own way, especially when your Sith warrior is casually choking someone mid-dialogue.
And you, I did not request your help so that you could bring aliens into the Empire.
Speak to me again in that tone.
Now, the UI is functional. It's got that early 2010s MMO clutter to it with lots of tiny buttons and nested menus, but it's fully customizable. You can scale elements, reposition bars, and trim things down if you want a cleaner look. It's not like sleek out of the box, but it is serviceable. On modern hardware, the game runs pretty well. You can easily push past 100 FPS on a decent rig, and it supports high resolutions without issue. There's no real next-gen visual upgrade though, but the frame rate boost alone goes a long way in making the experience feel smooth. Now, it's not gonna wow anyone used to the fidelity of like Final Fantasy XIV or ESO's newer expansions, but for a game this old, it still gets the job done, and more importantly, it still looks and sounds like Star Wars. Now, if there's one thing that sets the Old Republic apart from almost every other MMO on the market, it's the story. And it's not just because it has a decent main quest. This is full Bioware-style storytelling, with branching dialogue, moral choices, and companion loyalty arcs baked into every class. From the start, you pick one of 8 class archetypes, 4 per faction, and each one has a fully voiced, unique storyline that spans multiple planets and dozens of hours. Some of these stories are genuinely excellent. The Imperial Agent storyline, for example, still gets talked about today as one of Bioware's best written narratives. Sith Warrior also stands out, especially if you lean into the dark side with force chokes and stuff, and is probably my personal favorite. And while not every story hits equally, like the Jedi Consular storyline, for example, which is extremely chill, like snoringly so, But the variety and replayability are still impressive. Most of it is fully voice acted too, including your player character. Every main story dialogue choice is spoken, and while the quality varies from actor to actor, the overall effect is still impressive, especially for an MMO.
We have limited time, and you're closest. Destroy that weapon.
That sounds an awful lot like an order.
I'm sorry, I don't have time for formalities. We have to stop the Republic attack.
Now, you're not just reading quest texts here, you're in a conversation and making actual decisions. Now, it's not as tight as something like Mass Effect 2 or Dragon Age Origins, and some of the animations definitely starts to show their age, but most of the time it feels like the choices matter. You can play a pure-hearted Sith, a pragmatic smuggler, a Jedi with a secret dark streak, like it's flexible. The more recent expansions post-level 50 shifts the structure a bit, they become more linear, less class-specific, but the writing is still relatively solid. And for players looking for a sit back and play through a story kind of experience, Star Wars: The Old Republic still offers something genuinely unique in the MMO space. Now, while we're on the subject of dialogue, the voice acting in The Old Republic still holds up, especially for a game from 2011. Now, while some performances are dated, many, like the female Sith warrior, are genuinely excellent. The sound effects hit the right notes, the lightsabers hum, blasters pop, and force powers crackle with proper weight. Now, if you're jumping into the Old Republic for the first time in 2025, the onboarding is functional, but definitely old school. You'll get a barrage of tutorial pop-ups explaining systems like gear, companions, and crafting, but it's all front-loaded. There's no gradual introduction like you'd see in modern MMOs. It leans more toward information overload than smart pacing. That said, the class stories are still structured well. You pick a faction and a role, and the game throws you right into a personal narrative that feels like a proper RPG campaign. There's also a level boost available if you want to skip the early sections, but for new players, the early game is really where the best content lives. So, if you've never played The Old Republic before, it's absolutely worth jumping in, especially for the story. The early game still holds up as a single-player RPG experience with full voice acting, branching dialogue, and distinct class narratives that keeps things interesting. It's not the most modern MMO in terms of systems or visuals, but it has carved out its own little niche. You're not really here for cutting-edge graphics or sweaty raid mechanics. Well, some of you are, but most new players definitely aren't. You're here to be a Sith Lord choking fools out in dialogue scenes, and in that department, it still delivers. There's a lot of content, even for solo players. You can run flashpoints with a companion, explore all 8 class stories, and experience some genuinely solid writing. But just know what you're getting into. It's a game built on early 2010s design. You will see jank, and you will feel the age. But if you're a Star Wars fan who wants to live out that fantasy, with choices, consequences, and a lightsaber in hand, then The Old Republic is still an enjoyable time. Now, before you click off this video, remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more content like this. This has been Mr. Holton, signing off.